So today we're going to be looking at 3 different tactics. One for a very beginner, one for more of an intermediate, trying something different, and then one that most definitely seems to be working across the board. Now, the game is very brand new, and in terms of playstyles, everybody's finding their own. Ignore the loans, it's just a mock-up so I can get the tactics. This, in general, is always an interesting one because there's a lot of people that just go with a 4-4-2. I personally go with it to start with, get my bearings, and then I can kind of make my decision on which formation I'd like to go in. So the first one, which is going to be the bog standard 4-4-2, we're going to have a look at right now. So with this one specifically, I will have all codes in the description, so make sure you're checking it down there as well. We're going to go into new tactics, and we'll call this one the 4-4-2. Now, in terms of what we're looking at for this one, you're looking very balanced. So straight off the bat, you want to obviously go into the custom. We are going to change the formation into the 4-4-2, and it is going to be the flat to keep them 2 centre mids. Now, a big build-up play with this is that you've got the 2 strikers, so you can almost include one of the midfielders and leave one at the back. So you kind of almost make a 5 at the back and say a 5 up front. You kind of always passing that one player that's always going to be venturing in the middle. Now, in terms of build-up styles and defensive approach, to be honest, it's been very rarely that I've changed too much of the build-up style. You've obviously got balance, counter, you've got short passing, and it goes back to balance. I'm normally pretty good with balance, so I keep it there. When it comes to the defense approach, sometimes I do like to go with high. I know it's limited playing space. Obviously, then you've got the unimaginative build-up play and the lack of attacking options. So with the 4-4-2, I normally keep it at the balance. Just in general, to keep everything nice and kind of just going up and down, it works effortlessly for me. Like I say, this is a very beginner approach. It's always good to have some player roles, some tactics in there. Even if you're not necessarily going too crazy on the divisions, you're not necessarily trying too hard to go forward, because naturally you want to have players utilizing their roles. So starting the goalkeeper, to be honest, I'm not going to mention him again because naturally I always keep it goalkeeper plus or plus in this role, and then I keep it balanced. There's not really a need for me to go any others. Again, some people might like a different goalkeeper strategy. I just keep him as the goalkeeper. Now, fullbacks is always interesting depending on what you want to go with. With this beginner setup of a 4-4-2, I personally would always go fullback, and go with both on the balance. Sometimes I could throw it into defend, and it again works depending on what I'm trying to do, but as a fullback I want them being an option to then pass it down the wing, to go midfield, to go back to the wing, to go to the forward, and make them little triangles. If I hold them on defense, it just holds them back that slight bit. They don't necessarily push out as much, so I do need a bit more breathing room around the kind of back end to be able to pass it out. When it comes to the midfield then, this is dependent on who you've got in the midfield. Ignore both of these players specifically because naturally you might have somebody different. When it comes to the 4-4-2, I like a defensive mid and a box-to-box cam-esque sort of player. And I like to have them as almost like a 4-1-2-1-2. I'll have one defend, one kind of build up with the attack. So with this one specifically, if I was going for the left and they were Caicedo, they were a DM, a Declan Rice, they were like a Patrick Vieira, I would personally have them as either the deep line playmaker or maybe something like the holding. Now again, when you do look through the positions, you can see you've got the build-up, but you can keep it on the defense as well. So with these two personally, I like having more of the holding, but most definitely if I was looking at Vitinha, I'd be looking maybe on the deep line playmaker with the defending as well, just because he's got the pass on him as well. Then obviously you've got someone like Wirtz. He has got a few different ones that you can go with. A lot of the time I do like the box-to-box in a 4-4-2. There is kind of the cam aspect that I would go for more of the playmaker, but with obviously Wirtz, I would more than likely be going for the box-to-box, and I'd probably just keep him on the balance there as well. When it comes to the left wing and right wing, or left mid and right mid, I would normally go with the inside forward, and I'd have them both on the attack. Now, you can obviously go more wide if you really want, but I do like these pushing forward, but being like that left and right forward amongst it in like a 4-2-4 on the attack. Now, the one thing I would suggest is just a little bit of an interesting kind of one to go with this. is you've still got to play it relatively slow. This game is all about keeping the possession. It's building up. It's not just running and gunning. Sometimes you could do it if the defender's not necessarily going crazy. You can obviously just attack constantly. But naturally, when you do come up against somebody that can defend, bringing them forward, don't just bomb someone forward because it throws everybody out of whack. You don't want to do that. Then obviously you go with the advance forward for the attackers. Again, I've not really found any reason to change that. The false nine, the poacher, the target forward. Yes, potentially on different formations, but I think for this, it definitely still fits. So that would be kind of how I would link up between with the ball and without the ball. It's nice and balanced. There's nothing flashy. It just gets you going to start the game. So if you're looking for coins, check in the description for El Dorado. Depending on the coin amount that you're looking for, the delivery time is displayed on the website, and you'll see lots of different trusted sellers with reviews on specifics and also the ability to be able to pick who you want. It will also show how much they have in stock, and obviously you can see that they are verified members. There is 100% refund ability and also 24/7 support if you need any questions with your coin needs. Also, if you head over to Trustpilot as well, you can see over 30,000 upvotes for them. You can see how reliable they are. Obviously great feedback across the entire board with El Dorado. So when on checkout, make sure you are using the code JT11 for 5% off your order every time. Discount code JT11. Now let's get back to the video. So if you wanted to note down the code, it is there if you want to pause it, but I will put them down below in the description. So moving on to the next one, which is going to be one of my favorites to go with next, is the 433-4. So apparently, oh no, that's a code. So it is going to be the 4334. This is obviously with the cam variation. This again is another fan favorite of mine. I do like to switch to this once I start getting some better players that can most definitely hold their own, which is interesting because this year I think it's still going to be very relevant, but there's definitely one that you want to stay around with and see. Again, I would personally be looking more towards custom 433, balance and high. I like to keep a higher line on this one just because I do tend to kind of have my DMs hold a little bit more. I don't mind having a bit of a high line as I've got almost 6 at the back because I trust with the playing power that I would have in this formation to be solely on them 4 players. So with this specifically, goalkeeper defend, fullbacks I'd go with balance, defenders I'd go with defend. The back line doesn't really change that much for me personally. I like to have the solid 4 at the minimum, and then it all comes in these 6 players. So if I was looking at Lewandowski in the CDM role, personally for me here, I would be looking at a deeply aligned playmaker. I would go in with a build-up. Now what I would be utilising here is my better DM, my better centre mid that's more defensive, I would be looking to utilise as this one. Somebody who can push up that little bit more, because what's this going to do is it does keep him on the defence, but he does slowly creep up with the attack as well, and then I can obviously play it into verts and the wingers. Whereas the other side, somebody who cannot really play make, is more just defense and that's it. Like a Declan Rice in terms of his pace side of stuff is better holding that line rather than pushing forward too much. I would then have on the holding. It's an easier one. I'd keep them on the defend, and they would both be relatively similar, but then we have the likes of Verts. Now, again, there's 2 different roles that you can go with him. I think you could go with the Shadow Striker, but I would say, personally, I'd go with the Playmaker. It's going to be the better one. Again, I've been trying to test Roman again, and I think it does work, but it's definitely subjective to your player. I think if you've got the role plus on the player, then you're definitely going to find better results, but there's no shame in going with the balance and just keeping him very tight in that role. Then obviously you've got the wingers. Again, these are very easy ones to go with. I personally would go with the inside forward and the attack. It's an easy one to kind of get on board with, and it just stays on a very nice attack. You've got Verts roaming around the middle. You've then got the 3 players up front that you're either going down wide or you're going straight through the middle. It works effortlessly, and what I find a lot of the time at the moment, I don't know if it's just counter tactics or if people's just tactics are not set up, I always find that the defense and the CDMs hold really well. Verts, in a lot of the matches, just has acres of space. I don't know if that is because the playmaker does drop a little bit more and the defensive side doesn't come and mark him as such, but he always has space to turn, and it just gives you so much more options to push forward a little bit more, and the 3 strikers, the 3 attacking players, can just get in behind, can come to feet, 1-2, and then knock it through. So it's been a very nice formation, but I must admit, if you're on the advanced side of stuff, this next one's for you. So the final formation is going to be the 4-2-3-1. Now this is an interesting one that I've seen from a few people now, and it's because it's narrow. If you've played this game, you realize it's a lot about passing. You could get away with passing. Like, pace is good, and you can still get down the wing. There's no problem with that. But it's definitely going narrow at the moment. Until we get a first patch, I've been really liking this formation. Now, it's not my personal favorite. I don't think I've got the players just yet to really pull this off. But in general, it's been one that has been very interesting to try out. Now, if we go all the way down, you will find the where have I lost it? I always lose this one. There it is. The 4-2-1-3. No, 3-1. Losing the plot. But then you go into the narrow formation for it. So you've obviously got all the ones around it. You can either go with the kind of narrow ones all the way down. You've obviously got the wide as well. I personally really like the narrow with this one rather than the wide. Keeps everybody kind of in the middle, and it works really, really well for that. Again, I'd just go with the balance, and I'd go with high on this one just because I'm trying to really push them up. But there is a very decent roll across the board with this. Now, for me, it's always the same for the back line. It's just an easy one. And then what I do with these two, because the formation's so narrow, they almost come up on the build-up, but then they don't really go too crazy on the attack. They tend to be able to defend quite a lot. So with these ones specifically, I would go both of them into the deep line playmaker build-up. So what this does is they push up that little bit more. So they are obviously in the play, but they're kind of like halfway line, little bit ahead of that, and then they're back straight away once you lose the ball. Now, obviously, if you're being countered, it's a little bit different. You definitely need to be holding really nice and firm on the defense, because you don't want to just be moving people left, right, and center. What I would do on the defense here, because the back line will be high, but they'll be dropping back naturally. If they're running with you down the wing or what have you, I would be taking one of the controls of a DM and bringing them back manually, because then you're bringing another player on the defense. The fullback will stop them so much with the computer, but then you've got yourselves a 5-back, and then Vitinha will come back as well. So having them on the build-up doesn't necessarily isolate them going forward. So then we've got obviously the cam and the two almost cam left and right mids. So with the cam role, I would normally always go with the playmaker. I think, again, that one's an interesting role. I would normally go balance on this, but again, Roman is an option. Now, with obviously a striker, the advanced forward doesn't really change too much. I think that's been an impeccable one to go with. But when it comes to the two left and right hand sides, I would normally go here as the shadow striker and the attack. And it's funny because it does very similar to what we saw in the previous formation. But the difference with these is they're not necessarily as bunched up. What I found in terms of the attacking option here, you've got almost a funnel going forward with your DMs, your cam, making that triangle. Wirtz and Alvarez being the two wider players, they will push forward alongside Lewandowski, but they will give a little bit of gap. So you can bring them in, but they will be able to go on the wide as well. Whereas when we look at the 4-3-3, with the obvious inside forward with them, they do bunch in a little bit more. So what I would suggest with this formation, it is all about the passing. It's all about being calm and collected with it. And it's why I say this is more the advanced sort of tactics, because naturally you can't really run and gun with this one too much. It's all about where you play your passes. And I found it to be a very good formation that I could see most definitely going up to the top level. I know Run the Foot Market did a narrow formation, or at least he knows that narrow is back, and if he knows it, everybody else knows it, because naturally we can see the passing game. It's quick, it's tiki-taka. As soon as you get them players with any passing play style plus the actual composure and the ability to pass, it's going to get messy in that elite division. And that's going to be all the formations for today. Leave it down below which one's your favorite, or if there's any that I haven't covered and you want to see covered, leave it in the comments, and I'll catch you all for that next one. Peace.